Hey everybody, this is Perch. I have two daughters, I think as most of you know. And one of the things about having two daughters is routinely people will come up and give me advice about how those daughters should be raised. And one of the things that happened more to my wife than to me is that she would get unsolicited advice about how, you need to make sure that your daughters understand that they don't need a man to help them out, to save them, to, white knight them, whatever it happens to be. They don't need a man. Now, keep in mind, when people would give my wife this advice, she was in a program called PEPS. And PEPS is where mothers for the first year or sometimes 2 years kind of meet up once a week with their infants and they discuss, what they're going through. Do they need, it's very kind of mother support group type of thing for new mothers. And it's a way to make friends and everything else. My wife, who loves to socialize, and I am being sarcastic, still, took some value out of it, made some good friends there. But the friends she didn't take were the ones who would tell her, like, you need to make sure your daughter understands she don't need a man. Now, keep in mind that my daughter is like 12 weeks at this point. I hope she doesn't need a man. Like, God, what are you saying there? Anyway, it was a weird narrative. And at the time I was working with Disney, and I was doing a lot there. And you would hear this inside Disney, the company as well. And this has gotten louder. But in 2010, the conversation with Disney would go something like this. We have all of these movies that have aged really, really badly. And they've aged really, really badly because they showcase that princesses, and always it was Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Cinderella, Little Mermaid, they all need a man to take care of them. And it sends a really bad message to girls, particularly like Snow White. Fuck, she just, her only use is like, stupidly talking to animals and cleaning. And then she needs a guy to come kiss her to wake her up. And then you have Sleeping Beauty, who just like lounges around, needs a prince to kiss her to wake her up. And you have Cinderella just flirts around waiting for somebody to put a shoe on her foot. And Little Mermaid, she can't talk, but she needs a prince to give her her voice back. And so all these, these are like, these movies age really, really badly, and they send horrible, questionable messages to young girls. And websites like the Mary Sue also would do articles like why the old Disney movies were awful for girls, including even things like Aladdin. Like, you have this princess, but she needs this. Yeah, she didn't even get a prince. She needs some street rat to come and help save her. I think the person saving the princess there was that giant ass tiger she had. But anyway, this has been said so often that I'll bet many of you who are listening to this video right now have not only heard these things, but maybe even agree with them to a large extent. Maybe you've heard but Disney movies age badly. Or, but some of those Disney movies have questionable messages for young girls. And if you don't believe that, or if you haven't heard it and bought in, then there's a chance that you've heard it and are arguing with it. No, those movies are good for girls. They teach girls that they should be in the kitchen or whatever they should lay around and wait for somebody to kiss them to help them out, or they do need a man to come give them a shoe, whatever it is. You may be taking that, traditional female values. That's what's important. You may be taking that stance as well. But both of these points of view are actually a very poor, read and understanding and memory of the movies and what they said. So this is the part where, you've got to erase some of what you've been told and some of what you believe. Because let me portray these movies in a different way for you. The movies were created back in some cases, 1940 for Snow White? Anyway, a long-ass time ago. More than 50 years ago, minus Aladdin. But the mass majority of these movies were made a long time ago. And if you actually watch these movies, and I've watched these movies with my daughter, they do not teach that women are just dopey, subservient, lumps that need a man to come around and save them. You take Snow White, for example. Okay, Snow White was living in the castle as a kid. Maybe the only creepy part in this is what age was she exactly when the prince came to kiss her? Like young. Anyway, but she was young. And, stepmother is like bitchy, tries to kill her. She runs away, talks to animals, and goes and kind of hangs out in this house and brings family and unity to the dwarves. Yes, she's doing domesticated tasks of cooking and cleaning and other things, but she's doing it because these dwarves basically had, no common sense to take care of themselves. At the very end, she eats this apple, falls into a coma. Prince comes. Except here's the thing: this movie went 95% of the runtime with no prince, no man in this situation. Just just her. And the dwarves and the animals and everything things. But the movie, the man was not relevant to the movie. Yeah, the man comes around at the end and kisses her to wake her up. But by and large, the man is pointless in this movie. If you go to Sleeping Beauty, the man is also pointless in that movie. Yeah, she's like, oh, I wish a prince would come. Like, she's singing about the prince, and she's, in this world of being a princess needs prince and all the rest. But the movie, again, is about her. If you go to Cinderella, the movie is about her and the fairy godmother, the bitchy sisters, and all the rest. It is not about her pining away for a man. A man comes at the end, puts the shoe on. But this idea that it's all about just a woman hanging out, being subservient to a man, is actually an idea that was put into your head. It doesn't actually resemble the movie. Remember, this movie was made over 50 years ago. And the movie was aimed at, basically, if you think about it from that context, it's a movie with a female lead and a male supporting actor. The movie is puts the woman front and center in the film. She is the main star. She is where the plot revolves around. She is where the different things happen. She is the character, all the character, everything that happens in this is through her. Even more recent films like Little Mermaid, this movie, she is the one who has the adventures, has the dream, gets onto the ship, saves the prince, gets the deal, goes onto the shore, tries to do... This is a movie where she is the main star. Prince Eric in this movie, again, is a bit player. And yet he gets more screen time than the dudes in Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and Snow White, who get very little time. Now, if you think about a movie in, say, 1940 being put on the screen, it was quite revolutionary to walk in there and see a female-led movie, which is what this was, what Snow White was. Same thing with Alice in Wonderland. A lot of these films were basically the biggest showcase a woman has had in a long, long time, or frankly, ever in movies. That's who this was all about. The idea that it was the man needed the to save the day is something that popped into our heads. Something that more recent people in the last 20 years have said over and over and over again to make us feel bad about the past. It's not actually honest or true. So I mention all this because we've now had a new world where we're having to say, well, we need to change the movies. We need to give more female positive role models, all the rest of that kind of stuff. But it's built on a premise that these old movies were sickeningly bad. And the reality is they actually weren't. Not in the way you think. They may appear bad, they may seem bad, you may have been told they were bad so long you believe it, but if you actually watch these movies, all the development, all the power, all the character, all this stuff happens with the woman. The guy is usually, in the case of Sleeping Beauty, a two-dimensional nothing character that really has nothing to do. In Sleeping Beauty, the guy gets a little bit more to do. He hacks his way through some vines and murders a dragon, but again, very, very little screen time. Very little. Now you can come in here, so why can't the woman murder the dragon as well? Sure, I guess the woman could do everything in the film, but the woman's already doing 95% of the things in the film. The woman is who the film is built around. The woman is the star. The guy is there as somewhat of a prop, with about as much personality as the sword the guy is carrying. It's a different way of looking at these things, but frankly, it's an honest way of looking at these things. Now you can say, hey, in 2023, guys can't just, women can't just walk around waiting for guys to kind of help them out with their problems. But even if you look at the Little Mermaid, yeah, she's trying to hook the prince. Yeah, she's trying to get the prince to kiss her so she can have her voice back. It's also her that steers this ship to murder this, or is it? Is it Eric or her? Maybe it's Eric that murders. You know what? I may take this point back. I don't know who murders giant Ursula. I think it is Eric, actually, that steers the ship and impales her with this thing. But regardless, The guys in these films have no personalities, have very little to do, and are there basically to move the next step of the plot along for the woman. These movies are not the misogynistic, sexist nightmare stories that we've been told. Not even close. And so this idea that we have to change the movies now in order to make up for this, again, it's built on a false promise. Now, you've been told this so often, and I guarantee you, at least some of you are going, yeah, but no, this is a weird take. It actually isn't. Go and actually watch these films and see for yourself. Who's the star? Who does all the work? Who gets the development? Who changes? Who pulls the weight? It's a woman. In each one of these films, because it's a Disney princess film aimed at women, aimed at young girls. That was the entire point. It was meant to get, just like G.I. Joe has a predominantly male, group of soldiers running around shooting things, that's meant to appeal to young boys. Things like Cinderella, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty were meant to appeal to young girls. And so the girl gets all the screen time because that's who it's trying to talk to. The movie is not going, the entire purpose of the movie is not to set up the last 2% of it to say, yeah, but you can't actually do shit unless there's a guy around. That actually was not the film. That wasn't their intent. If you read the story and some of the articles around how these things happen, it's not what went on. It was meant to be entertainment for its target audience, a young girl. And young girls liked it, made a lot of money, has become a quote unquote classic. Now we got people coming around going, well, that sent horrible messages to young girls. But did it? How many do we really have this epidemic of young girls who are now in their 40s who are waiting for a guy to come around and give them a shoe? Anyway, some of this stuff just doesn't wash, and yet it's being used as the reason behind a lot of our media today. Think about it. Thanks for listening.